We're going to have to deal with the things that led to the act. In this view, if it's the agent in a particular scene, then the answer is to get the agent out of that scene, to get the agent into a different scene. So if this was done in a city by a young person, Burke would say, I bet you, if you probe that person, what's the answer to these problems? That person would say the answer is to get the young person out of the city.
What about that article that's out now about the cop that shot the kid in the car because the kid went to reach behind him?
I haven't read the article, so...
The hand, he made the gun sign with his hand. Oh. And the cop shot him.
Sure.
And then left the scene. You didn't read this?
No, I didn't read that one.
No. Did anybody read that in here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that was if the kid hadn't done that,
right.
Perhaps, not perhaps, that would have never happened.
Wait, did the kid
It started out with road rage. And then the cop, it was off-duty cop, followed this car. And they got to a point where they came up to the same light.
Right.
And there were words exchanged, road rage words. And he said the kid went like this, like he was going to reach for something, and then actually went like this out the window to the cop.
Yeah, a bad idea, right?
Yeah. So I'm just saying it's an action.
Yeah.
Cop in trouble.
Well, you see,
The cop ran away from the scene, but then he gave himself in.
Burke would be interested in looking at the various ways the story gets written. See, Burke is going to say the story, like we're talking here, the story can be told different ways. But Burke is going to say what's going on in the end of the day is that everyone's trying to get rid of their guilt. And so their motives are to figure out how do we get up this hierarchy? How do we get perfection? And Burke says if you read what the words of the people say, and you figure out how they're using these 5 things, you get a clue as to what they think what they need to do to purge their pollution, what they need to do. So in this case, it's to control guns. In this case, it's to get kids out of the city. So everything. So it would be interesting to do a Google search on that news story and click where it says, see all 364 stories about this. And then you begin to compare the stories and the sources of the story. Who's highlighting act, agent, agency, scene, or purpose? And it will tell you something about what they're trying to accomplish and how they think it would be done. So you could have all combinations of these things, and they will tell you something about what's going on. So let's look. Here's a news story about the thing that's happening in Turkey. Now, this is the Turkish press, and I believe it's in Michigan. Was where this is being written from. Okay, so it's from that source. Now, I want you just to read a bit of it, and let's do some Burke analysis here, and figure out what kind of way are they using act, agent. Agency is the thing that is used to do the act. The scene is the whole context and the location and the time. The agent is the person doing the action, and the act is the thing that's done. So what is there more of here? Are there more agents? Is there more agency? Is there more scene?
You said the agency was what?
The thing by which the act is done. So in a shooting, it's the gun is the agency.
Wouldn't it be purpose?
Well, here, what are you saying here?
I say it would be more purpose.
There's a lot of purpose. Where do you see?
Well, he's saying that PKK wants Turkey to attack them. That's why they have been doing these terrorist attacks.
Okay, so this article is a lot. You see, they are clearly inviting Turkey to do something. So there's a purpose, you see, all right? They're trying to dictate the steps. All right, so I see purpose. So we see purpose. What is the next thing? Or do you disagree and you think something else is more evident here? Is it the act? Is it the... I see a lot of act, right? The attack, the killing, the attack. So we also see a bunch of act.
I see.
Go
I
ahead.
say scene too.
Okay, so there's...
And the borders a lot and crossing borders.
Okay, so there's scene.
That's the whole thing you said?
The scene is the context, so it's the time, it's the place, it's inner city, it's rural countryside, it's midnight. Those are the scenes. You know, when it happens, where it happens, what's the setting of it. Okay, so here again, attacking, there's act again. All right, so Burke says we're trying, the author of this article is trying to purge guilt, is trying to climb the hierarchy, is trying to do the right thing. And so they're focusing then on act and purpose, or purpose and act. They're not focusing so much on the agency, right? They're not saying 400 raiders went across with tanks and weapons and guns. They're not focusing on the things that were used in the act. But there's a purpose, there's an act, and there's probably agent, right? There's agent, the terrorist, the PPK. All right, so we see these things. So what's not being emphasized is the agency. So that you would not expect this article to say, so in the end of the day, what we do is to disarm the PPK. Right? That's not what's going on here, because they're not highlighting the agency. They seem to be highlighting, and I would say, if I had to say what, Burke wants you to pick two. He says out of the five, pick two that are kind of the most prominent. So you have a purpose and an act. And so it's fairly obvious in this article that I think, that the author thinks, what we have to do then is to act carefully with a sense of purpose. We have to understand the purpose and we have to act accordingly, which is what they say there. So it's our decision, our choice is the way we purify ourselves from pollution and guilt. We make this choice, and then that means on the hierarchy of good decisions and bad decisions, we go up the hierarchy towards good decisions. Because good decisions, we should make good decisions. We should make wise decisions. Burke called these things the God terms, and he called these things the devil terms, the bad terms for someone. So those fit into our hierarchies. So the God term in this article is to make the wise choice, do the best thing. And we will do that by realizing the purpose and acting accordingly. So what does Burke's dramatistic pentad do for you? So here's an article. What does it give you? How are you better off having Burke's dramatistic pentad than not having it? I think someone else hasn't. Anybody else want to take a shot at this? Samantha, you want to take a shot at it? No. If I asked you to write a paper on this article, having Burke would then, go ahead.
Well, if you broke it down into the 5 sections, and it could help you see from which point of view it could be written, and therefore you could either agree or disagree or show how it's being persuasive.
Okay, it gives you a structure for criticism. It gives you a framework for doing analysis. That's what all theories do. They give you a framework, a structure to do it. So if we take this and say apply Walter Fisher's narrative paradigm to it, what are you going to be doing? What are you looking for?
Logic.
What's that?
Logic.
Well, you're looking for questions, and he's going to say not of logic, but what are the good reasons? What is the coherence? What is the narrative fidelity? So that's the framework you apply if you're doing this by Walter Fisher. If you're doing an Aristotelian rhetorical analysis of this article, what do you look for? You look for ethos, pathos, logos. You look for the way the author has got enthymemes or arguments that are incomplete, but you fill in the blanks. So Aristotelian analysis you could do, or you could do Burkean pentatic analysis, or you could do Fisher's narrative analysis. So you're getting equipped to do criticism, to do analysis of communication by having theories. You look for competing stories if you're doing narrative analysis. Let's go back to a different article. So this is one from the Turkish community in, here's one from a Russian source. Is that right? It's in the Russian paper written from London. All right, so let's take a look at this and see if it has a different pentatic analysis to it. Right. We do some semiotic analysis here too, right? See the graphic? What semiotically? What's the signifier? What's the signified? What is the meaning that's being communicated? We can do semiotic analysis of it. So the signifier is this. I think that's Turkish flag.
Oh, it's Turkish?
I think it's Turkish flag. So what is this fading in a thing about?
Like over shadows.
They're like ready to take over or invade.
Okay, so there's a semiotic use of this photographic feature, fade in, like it's like a fog, a cloud coming over it, So it's a semiotic analysis of this image, and it's coming in from the side. That's interesting because that's not where Turkey is. Turkey's in the this is like Syria and Jordan, and why are they doing that? Probably because it fits in the box on the graphic or something, But anyway, all right. So let's read this now and ask ourselves, what are we doing here? We act, agency, agent, scene, act, agency, agent, scene, purpose. What's the ratio that you would say fits this article? Let's see.
Purpose is there. Why they're doing it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of agent, we,
Seeing based in,
Turkish premier, agent. Turkish military is an agent. It's ready to do an act.
he hoped the resolution. Sounds like purposeful.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you were doing Burkean analysis, you would take a lot more time to read this and do it. All right, so this is seen, right? This part is the scene, that these countries, this is the context of it. But the scene is set at the very end of the article. So that's not as important. If that were up front, you would say this author thinks the scene is the most critical thing, but the author puts it at the bottom. So what's highlighted here is, who's going to take a shot doing two things? Two things are the most. Well, for anybody, go ahead. Bro, what do you want to say?
I think it's the act and the agent that are
Yeah.
dominant because they're referring to the strike and a possible counter-strike and
Right.
events and all of that.
So it's the act and the agent. So if I see that this author thinks this way, then the author's solution to the problem is to get the right agents doing the right acts. That's the way we get ourselves straight. The right agents have to do the right acts. Versus, what did we say? The other one was purpose and, what was the
Scene.
purpose and, what did we say?
Purpose and act.
Purpose and act. Right, so the way to do the right thing, to go up the hierarchy of our good decision, bad decision, is to act in the right way with the purpose in mind. Now this one is saying, is to get the agent involved in the action. So there's a difference in the way it's portrayed. The way these people would probably have an argument about what's the best thing to do in this.
It's interesting how this paper added 10,000 lives to the conflict
Yeah.
versus the other paper.
Yeah? Yeah, so maybe, and this is in a Russian paper, right? So, Russian news agency. So would it be if the actual facts are that we know it's between 30 and 40,000 lives, if we choose the higher one, that's to emphasize something or to try to minimize it. So the people have motives in the way they tell the story. Let's see if we can find another various voice. All right, let's go Los Angeles Times. There's a pretty all right, so here's, oops, a reporter for the Los Angeles Times who's stationed in Baghdad writing this. So let's read this and figure out, what are we dealing with? Are we dealing with act, agent, purpose? What's going on here? Yeah, so here's some actual statements from the PKK. So how is this different than the other things we've read? How's this different from the one in the Turkish press in Michigan?
Did a Kurdish people's voice here?
What's that? Okay, you actually get a PKK voice here. And does this PKK voice agree with the Turkish press voice from Michigan? What did the Turkish press voice from Michigan say was going on? That the PKK is trying to lure Turkey into northern Iraq to promote a confrontation with the United States and so forth. Does this one say that? No, this is a different story. Okay. So what's different about it? Let's use Burke again to figure out, is this about act, agent, agency, purpose? Is there much about purpose here? I don't see a whole lot of purpose, which is what the Turkish press stressed. Who's the aggressor in this article? Right, if the Turkish forces are threatening, the Turkish force has to stop their attacks. We prefer to solve the problems by democratic and peaceful ways. This is agency. What means will the act be done by? We mean to resolve the problems by democratic and peaceful things. So you have what the act is, and we have the agency. Right. So do you see, again, so from Fisher's perspective, you see competing narratives. From Burke's perspective, you see that people use those 5 elements in different ways. And that those will give you clues to how they think the problem should be solved. Those of you in PR, what do you think about this statement? Is it a good PR statement? If you're a PR person for the PKK? Yeah, because you're telling a different story, right? You're telling a story that we're the victims, we're being, there's aggression towards us, we're just responding to try to stop this. And we're ready anytime, if they stop, we're ready to use democratic solutions.
But yeah, I think it's a good statement, because it gives off the view like, oh, we're the victims, we're trying to, do this democratically and peacefully,
right.
And we just keep getting attacked, and we have to defend ourselves.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so Burke would say victimage is one way of explaining why you're not at peace. Peace is the God term, war is the devil term. Why are we not at peace? Why haven't we reached the hierarchy? Because we're victims. So Burke's analysis gives you a way to make sense of what's going on in this article. All right. So you can do this with any news story. So if you do a reflection and you want to just find a news story or a speech that's of interest and do some Burke analysis, use this language to do the analysis of what you're working with. But to me, I think Google News is an incredible thing, because I've done this in years before, and you take any current story and you look at the European take on it, you look at the Middle East take on it, you look at the Los Angeles take on it, and you're like, competing narratives, different motives. It's all there if you use some critical frameworks to take it apart. All right, so you got two more tools in your toolbox. You got Fisher's narrative paradigm, and you got Burke's dramatistic pentad. Now here's one I didn't. This was an article about a pentadic criticism of Paris Hilton's publicist. When the publicist made a statement after, when was this? This is probably a couple years ago. She got in a fight, got hit in the face at a club. Yeah, and so somebody did a pentadic analysis of the PR release from Paris Hilton's
Response to that, I guess.
publicist, right? And it says here in the case, the dominant term, the statement made by Paris Hilton's publicist, the dominant term was purpose. The publicist knew why this happened would be on the minds of every reporter, and therefore he framed the reconstruction of the incident around the attack. He does not even deal with the issue, and he believes Paris does not deserve. It's without provocation. And so he talks about there's no purpose to this. So he uses pentadic analysis. All right, the last bit of time we got about 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Let's do your groups, and let me come around and check and see where the progress is on your groups. And then we'll be done.
Yeah, our key person with a lot of our information who's going to bring it today isn't here, so the one we're doing with Jason, who's
Right.
working at the bank.
Yeah, he's been out twice. Let me turn this off, and then I'll come talk to your group, and we'll see what you got.
Do you want to come over here? So you're going to talk with the